We live in a country of 200 million inhabitants. It has continental dimensions.
We got a huge country where 7 families control 95% of our media system, and they use it very connected to their political interests.
And those 7 families have the power of communication and choose what is to be transmitted, what will be insinuated, where they will steer the conversation.
It's a credibility crisis. More than a decade with the possibility to exchange information in the internet, just make people feel that the information provided by the massive media, this is not enough anymore to form people's opinion. So they are looking permanently for alternative sources.
The media in Brazil is horrible. This has to change.
We just knew that we need to build our own media system.
Sao Paulo, Brazil's largest city, home to more than 20 million people within the greater metropolitan area. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil's second largest city, home to 12.1 million. In a country spanning 3.8 million square miles, these 2 global cities are separated by a mere 223 miles. A group of young students, artists, musicians, and journalists began referring to these 2 cities as the eixo, or axis of Brazil. Music, art, cinema, publishing, much of the culture industry was centered within this axis, dominated by Sao Paulo and Rio. So in 2005, this group, led by Pablo Capelé, set out to establish a network of independent cultural producers and a slate of independent music festivals. And this network would exist outside the confines of the Rio-Sao Paulo corridor. Thus began Fora do Eixo, off-axis.
I think that some fundamental things to understand this happened. The first of them, it was the beginning of Lula's government. It was the first popular government in the history of the country, and he named Gilberto Gil as Ministry of Culture. So they started to build what we call a favorable environment to the rise of collective and network initiatives.
Felipe Altenfelder grew up in Sao Paulo, but attended college in São Carlos, a town in the countryside outside the larger city. He studied audio and video production before joining Fora do Eixo in 2007.
In this moment, internet was day by day being more a reality, and we are talking about a very big country, which is Brazil. So once you have a platform that allowed you to be in touch with people from north to south, this made a lot of difference to us. It was like the first possibility to break the geographical barriers and put people from different regions in contact.
Fora do Eixo capitalized on the favorable political environment and the increased access to broadband internet, rapidly expanding throughout the country. Through its music and culture festivals all over Brazil, independent artists, musicians, authors, performers, and the like, or what Fora do Eixo refers to as cultural producers, now had a platform for expression and a vehicle to gain publicity outside the Rio-Sao Paulo axis.
We started a network connecting people. We were connecting people far away from São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. We started to travel a lot all over Brazil, connecting independent producers, working with culture and free media. We were organizing a culture platform totally against the modus operandi of the culture industry in Brazil.
By 2011, the network included more than 100 cities throughout the country. Fora do Eixo was more than an engine of cultural diffusion. It was a way of life. The group's ethos and its organizational structure revolve around a collective pseudo-socialist existence, whether that be for personal, ideological, or logistical motives.
We live together in collective houses with a collective box where we share clothes, food, money, feelings, emotions, whatever it happens with us, we are always sharing it with each other.
Fora do Eixo appealed to those looking for an alternative form of living. Rafael Vilela studied photography at university when he became involved with the student social movement.
People would get out of the university and they would get normal, regular jobs, and with no other alternative to that. The perspective of having a normal job and a normal life is not so inspiring. I was involved in the social movements on the university with the students movement, and I was always looking for something else, something more, and I think Fora do Eixo was the answer for that. We created a collective there, and we started to work more and more with the cultural producing thing. I was always looking for some place to make my work to have real impact and to change lives and everything. When I found Fora do Eixo, I saw a really potent X structure built for that.
Felipe Peçanha, nicknamed Carioca, had a similar experience, joining a collective house while in college before the collective affiliated with Fora do Eixo.
Fora do Eixo, de certa maneira, ele...
Fora do Eixo, in a certain way, makes what we imagine become a reality, and that's because we live together, and because we can share those ideas and construct them together.
But the collective life championed by Fora do Eixo is more than just a group of like-minded people living in the same space.
Fora do Eixo, de certa forma...
Fora do Eixo is a technology and a way to organize ideas and to increase the potential of people living in the same space, so that beyond having an interesting coexistence, we also have a productive quality attached to that coexistence.
For those like Altenfelder, it was more an issue of how to distribute culture and music without the resources of an established corporation from within the Rio-Sao Paulo axis.
In the first moment, when the idea came from, it was just because it was the cheapest way, you know. Okay, we have 8 people here that want to found a collective. We know that the last thing that we're going to have in the end of month, it's 8 salaries. You know, we will have 1 with luck. So let's go to the same space, let's share this space, and let's make it possible. That thing about living in collective, it's not a poverty vote. It's a matter of strategy. We just find out that sharing, it's more cheaper, and then we can do lots of things with very few resources.
The cooperative ethos drew people like Carioca to Fora do Eixo in the first place. For others, like Altenfelder, the collective life was the answer to a logistical problem. Either way, being a core member of Fora do Eixo meant becoming part of the collective. As Fora do Eixo expanded and matured, fledgling filmmakers, photographers, journalists, and other media producers emerged within the network. Fora do Eixo began filming, photographing, and writing about its festivals, its artists, its collectives.
We started dealing with the possibility of creating tools to tell stories of Fora do Eixo in order for us to listen to what happens in a collective home. What was a collective cashier? What were the independent festivals? And who are the bands that were part of those festivals? And the tours of those bands as they traveled the rural areas, and all that circulation of the culture producers that we thought needed to be more visible, not only for Brazil, but for the world.
Over the course of a couple years, Fora do Eixo developed its own communication team that was semi-autonomous from the larger organization. This group would eventually come to be known as the Mídia NINJA.
We started thinking about Mídia NINJA specifically in mid-2011, 2012, when we started noticing that the communications team from Fora do Eixo, they noticed that they could transmit the narrative from Fora do Eixo. Beyond that, they could also communicate what was going on in society.
It was the beginning of the discussion of what could be Mídia NINJA. So we didn't have that name yet, but we were starting to make like this laboratory of independent communication. And Fora do Eixo was working the last years with social media, photography, live streaming, and it was a natural process to to come from Fora do Eixo and start this network after all the things that Fora do Eixo has done?
The communication business, the communication industry in Brazil, it was living a crisis, a very similar crisis that the one that we could observe in the music industry 6 years ago when we started a network of independent festivals.
A gente vive num país de 200 milhões de habitantes.
We live in a country of 200 million inhabitants. It has continental dimensions where the main media networks are run by 7 families. And those 7 families have the power of communication and choose what is to be transmitted, what will be insinuated, where they'll steer the conversation and express that as personal identity and culture.
And they use it very connected to their political interests. It's a very corporative media system. Their political interests are clearly connected to a more right-wing, conservative side of Brazilian politics.
Reporters Without Borders, an international nonprofit dedicated to protecting freedom of the press and freedom of information, pegs the number of families at 10, but describes the situation in even harsher terms than the Ninja does. The Brazilian media reflect their almost incestuous relationship with the political and economic power centers. Concentration of ownership at the national and regional level, and harassment and censorship at the more local level are the distinguishing features of a system that has never really been questioned since the end of the 1964 to 1985 military dictatorship.
Let's go by the 2 main things that we work, media and culture producing. This is both social areas in Brazil that they used to be built and related to very few and monopolist groups, and we understand these 2 things as rights of the population.
But Altenfelter says the media industry in Brazil didn't deliver on those rights.
It's a credibility crisis. More than a decade with the possibility to exchange information in the internet, just make people feel that the information provided by the massive media, this is not enough anymore to formers people's opinion. So they are looking permanently for alternative sources. And this just motivates us a lot to start a new initiative, working network, based now on communication and not just on culture production. We just knew that we need to build our own media system to give visibility to an alternative culture scene that was raising all over the country.
And the Mídia NINJA was born.
Então a Mídia Ninja ela é.
So Mídia NINJA is kind of like an accumulated result from the network of Fora do Eixo.
The best way to see that is that Mídia NINJA is incubated in Fora do Eixo and it's working to be total autonomous.
Little did they know, Ninja was about to assume the mantle for independent journalism throughout the country. In 2011, Fora do Eixo decided to leverage the strength and popularity of its rural network to take on the culture industry inside the Rio-São Paulo axis.
In 2011, we already got that network structured all over Brazil. Then we decided to face a new challenge, and we moved to São Paulo, the biggest city from Brazil, and we just started a collective house there.
This was a seminal moment in the development of Ninja, because it allowed the group to plug into other social movements, other causes beyond culture production in the periphery of Brazil.
Once we moved to São Paulo, we start to get closer to more traditional social movements. And once we got closer, we started to find ways to collaborate to them. And then we just realized that the best way to do it was to apply our independent communication methodologies to give visibility to different social fights. So how can we be able to communicate ourselves not just to the people that are already following the political debate? How can we talk to not organized people, but at the same time give visibility and have legitimacy to be into the activist environment in Brazil. Also, we just got together with the environment movement, with the gay movement, with people that are fighting for a new drugs politics in Brazil, people that are discussing urban mobility questions and lots of different social issues. And we started to help them to create campaigns, to give visibility to marches, protests, acts and meetings.
E os coletivos
In the independent collectives, in a way, we're in a growing up phase. We're connecting and expanding a media activist network throughout the whole of Brazil.
While Ninja incubated within Fora do Eixo and attached itself to various social movements, civil unrest had been simmering within Brazil. And in June of 2013, it reached a boiling point. 1 million Brazilians marched in the streets of Rio. The military police violently suppressed the protests. The ninja moment had arrived.
Our traditional and massive media system was totally unprepared to document and cover a situation which you have 1 million people marching on the streets. So they were basically filming from the helicopter, and they had somebody speaking about that from a studio miles away from this protest, and 99% of times this presenter was calling people vandals, were saying that they were there without knowing why, and this kind of stuff. And when people get back to their houses after being on the streets, they turn on the television and they saw somebody calling them vandals.
Unlike the Brazilian traditional media, ninjas were in the streets, covering the protests at the ground level. They would stream scenes from the protest live on the internet using smartphones. They would take pictures from within the throngs of people and post those photos on Ninja's social media channels, showing audiences what the protest looked like from inside.
Then he turned on the computer, go to social networks, and they just saw a channel taking pictures close to him, the same point of view, in first person, trying to understand what was happening there.
Desde o começo da primeira semana que a gente veio.
There was already a need, a repressed demand of the protesters to actually have someone that was able to express with relevance, pride, and precision what were the demands that were out in the streets.
So when they compare us to the massive media, they just trust us much more, and this made us explode in terms of visibility.
The Mídia NINJA earned the trust of many social movements within Rio and Sao Paulo because it wasn't just independent journalists. The ninjas were activists fighting on their behalf. And they were all in the streets, together.
A gente com a Mídia NINJA fez uma série de transmissões.
So we did a series of transmissions with Mídia NINJA last year that were very symbolic and that created a sense of connection with most of the protesters that are part of the actions on the streets. And here in Rio, we had a very strong connection.
In Carioca's words, the ninja gave voice to the protesters who felt like they didn't have one.
De ter uma identidade própria dessas pessoas.
To have the personal identity of those people, look at us and realize that we can be a channel that transmit the ideas they're trying to get out in the streets and take it beyond the streets to the whole world. A voice that represents them, because it's actually their own voices that are being amplified.
This connection with the protesters became the foundation for the ninja's legitimacy as a collection of independent journalists.
Why lots of people started to trust Mídia NINJA as a channel? Because we are fast, because our reporters, they are brave, they can go really into deep the situation, because we can spread information quickly, and because we are like 24 hours, so something is happening at 4 a.m., there is no media there, and the ninjas are there, and people really trust us for that.
The June protests of 2013 presented a foundational moment for independent media in Brazil. In the years of learning, development, and experimentation within Fora do Eixo had prepared the Ninja to act with speed and with purpose. And act they did. In July of 2013, newly elected Pope Francis was set to visit Rio. Protesters took to the streets yet again.
Last year, when the Pope visited Brazil, it was a march against it, not against the Pope, but against the money that government was spending to have the Pope in Brazil.
Carioca was streaming the protest live from his mobile phone for the Mídia NINJA when violence erupted around him.
And then the military police here from Rio de Janeiro, they use it undercover cops to throw Molotov cocktails against their own troops. Then they could start an insane repression to that march.
Voaram coquetéis Molotov e a polícia...
Molotov cocktails started to fly, and the police came with really strong repression, like we had never seen before in Rio, even taking into consideration how aggressive the police are. They got into pickup trucks and started to shoot the protesters from point-blank range. The mood was total chaos. But then the protesters relocated to Lago de Machado, a neighborhood close to there.
And they arrested an innocent and took him to jail to say, this guy threw the Molotov cocktails.
E aí lá no Lago do Machado eu estava transmitindo, já tinha umas 10.000 pessoas acompanhando a transmissão.
And then in Lago de Machado, I was transmitting live. There were already about 10,000 people following the transmission live, and after about 20 or 30 minutes, after the protesters got together again, came a policeman that had no uniform, and he pulled me by my arms and he said, "Come here, I want to interview you." And I said, "Interview me for where, dude? For what newspaper? For what platform?" And he talked into his cell phone like this while he was still taking me by my arms, while talking into the phone, and he didn't answer anything that I asked. He started pulling me, and then all of a sudden came policemen in uniforms. They started to pat me down, started looking in my pockets, my backpack, trying to find something, and they didn't find anything.
We put him into the car live, and there were 10,000 people seeing that he was arrested for nothing. But in that night, something very interesting happened, because some people that were close to the situation, they just saw it and they say, "Whoa, the ninja was arrested. The ninja was arrested, the ninja," and this information just spread it really fast on the street, and suddenly we have a small crowd of 5,000 people that were screaming something like, "Hey, police, where is Mídia NINJA?" And they started to march to the police department where they took the ninja.
After about 20 to 30 minutes, all those people that were in Lago de Machado and that saw me getting arrested were outside the police station screaming, "Hey, police, free the Mídia NINJA." The police officers inside really didn't know what to do. They kind of knew that the protest could come there, but after about 30 minutes, they freed me, and then we stayed outside until everyone left.
A gente ficou do lado de fora ainda.
I think it's a great example of how we had a very intimate relationship that we still have with the movements that are in the streets and the people that are part of the protests. And in a way, they weren't there to defend me, Felipe Pesena. It was actually to defend Mídia NINJA, to have the possibility to say to the world what their objectives were.
But the story didn't end with Carioca's release.
And they did a mistake, because they took the guy that they were trying to say that threw the Molotov cocktail to the same department, and they put him together into the same room. So we were not live anymore, but he still has his mobile, and then he recorded a video with that guy, and he was very calmly, and he just said it, "Okay, I'm innocent, and in the moment that I got arrested, I just saw that it were hundreds of people filming and taking pictures, and I just know now that if everybody put those images on internet right now, tomorrow morning it will be very easy to see the truth and everybody will see that I'm innocent. And then we just posted this video in Facebook in real time, and it started to viralize. Everybody was sharing, thousands of shares. And then, like 1 hour after, our mailboxes just started. Picture, video, and people started to send us lots of content, which allowed us to do an edition that shows clearly that that guy was innocent. So this moment, it was very special because more than Ninja, the free media movement showed his power. The guy was liberated by lunchtime after the thing was proved. And in that night, there is Jornal Nacional. It's the main news TV show here in Brazil. It goes on air by Global Television. And they used to be very against civil society 99% of times, but in that night they couldn't lie again. The thing was proved, and they gave our history.
And for the first time, the mainstream media in Brazil acknowledged the Ninja as something more than a loose collection of vigilante journalists.
They used our image, and it was something very new because every time that they use external images, the ones that they are not producing it, they used to credit as amateur cinegraphist images. And in that night, they credit as Mídia NINJA images. So more than being there, it was important to put an independent vehicle into the official narrative.
Então, eu acho que fica pequeno.
So I think all the threats we receive are worth it. It is a risk, but within this whole context, being arrested, being beaten by the police, having your eyes watering because of pepper spray, tear gas, it's really small compared to the bigger picture. We know the role we have when we join a network like Ninja and the history that we're writing towards a free and independent media in Brazil.
And this is changing Brazilian reality, this is changing Latin reality, and this is giving us the possibility to have a new relate with the rest of the world.
By the end of that summer, the Mídia NINJA had more than 300,000 Facebook followers thanks to bravery like Carioca displayed. People were watching Ninja's live streams in the tens of thousands. Thousands more followed on Twitter. What had started as an experiment among students, journalists, producers, and musicians within Fora do Eixo had expanded into a legitimate, independent media enterprise. From exposing police brutality to exonerating innocent protesters, the Ninja made its impact felt. Fueled by its connection to the social movements within Brazil, the Mídia NINJA wanted to represent those without a voice in the contemporary media landscape within the country. But it requires more than live streaming protests to make that counterbalancing narrative a reality. Once the chaos of the protests subsided came the next step, determining the group's direction moving forward. To start, Mídia NINJA doesn't want to be a traditional media company. It operates within a horizontal leadership structure in which every ninja's voice matters.
We don't organize ourselves as a common newspaper editorial structure, so we don't have a boss. No one is a boss, as everyone can defend an argument or transform an idea into a content, but we are all sharing our ideas and responsibilities, so we decide things in a collective way.
It's what we call an organic methodology. There is no like a procediment book, you know, there is no rules actually. we just broke the barrier between life and work. And once you break it, you are just mixing these intense things in the same place. So we are taking decisions every minute, and people are just dialoguing to find out what we're gonna do.
Despite the lack of formal processes and hierarchies, there is a division of labor within the collective, and individuals do tend to focus on specific tasks.
People would say that I'm an editor, like receiving the content, publishing things, sharing this content not just on the page or in the website, but seeing, okay, from the international press, who are we going to send it, Brazilian activists, who we need to share this information. So it's a kind of a political job, but also related to manage content.
Rafael specializes in still photography. Isidoro works with graphic design, photography, and dabbles in text. Carioca wears many hats, working as an editor, producer, and a live streaming reporter. Bernardo works with photography and videography. Others work as video editors or with social media outreach. Still others work as cooks or household help. Each person has his or her place in the organization. Even though the Ninja claim a horizontal leadership structure, there is a kind of hierarchy within the decision-making process, which is determined primarily by tenure. But the Ninjas insist they always make editorial or financial decisions collectively. Much as the editorial structure is decentralized and largely unpredictable, so too is the process of becoming part of that editorial collective. New recruits start as collaborators, working with the Ninja on basically a freelance basis.
We used to have some collaboration time. Okay, come with us, join us on the street, let's go to cover that, let's go twice a week, 3 times a week.
The Ninja rely on collaborators throughout the country for content, and many contributors won't take the plunge into the collective. But for those who want to become fully immersed, the next step comes with a trial run in one of the houses.
Okay, so let's make it for 1 week. You start, and then in the end of the week, we will talk and see how you're feeling, how people are feeling you in the dynamics.
If everything goes well,
let's go now for 3 months. And then after 3 months, we're gonna be evaluating that and see how it's going. And then you can advance until the point that you are totally in.
But as Isidoro Machado explains, there isn't really a moment of formal induction.
There is no such a thing as a bureaucratic process, or we have to have these skills to live with us or anything. It is always open and everyone can be part of. We don't have like from this day on you are a fora do eixo, ninja or anything like that.
Despite a lack of editorial structure, the Mídia NINJA has a core set of issues they focus on, and there are a few guiding principles about what determines its editorial direction.
And in an editorial way, we tend to choose the things that the big media, the big corporation media in Brazil won't cover. Or if they will cover it, they will cover it in a way that we don't think it's the best one.
Okay, if massive media it's abording this situation in this direction, we will probably need to give visibility for the other side. And there's lots of questions that the traditional media is simply not saying anything about, and that we believe that it's important to give visibility. So this is something that used to guide us.
Beyond defining the traditional mass media in Brazil, Altenfelder specifically identified 6 primary coverage areas, most of which closely coincide with the social movements Fora do Eixo aligned itself with upon its arrival to Sao Paulo. First, urban mobility.
The right of the city. How can people use the public space? How can we have more democratic and contemporaneous cities?
Second,
it's related to media, democratization and regulation.
I think we're getting closer to the point where we can really think about what is and what can be participative democracy with the media.
Third,
then we are covering human rights, and in this moment more focused on the military police questions, the murders on favelas.
Fourth,
It's more related to environment, the indigenous people fights, the forest preservation, the contradictions that we had in Brazil. There's lots of mining going on here, and this hurts the nature a lot.
fifth,
It's the political debate. We have a very youth democracy in Brazil. Democracy in Brazil has 32 years now, and something like that. So we need to be increasing and sophistifying our democracy system.
and finally,
It's something that could look minor if you compare to all of them, but for the moment that we are living, we believe that something really important, which is the drug politics and the need of the end of the war on drugs. In the way that is possible to start it now, it's by the legalization of marijuana here in Brazil. It's not more just stone people fighting for the right to get high. Under the excuse of war on drugs, what states promoting in Brazil is actually a war against poverty.
when considering its core issues, it might seem Mídia NINJA is made up of activists, not journalists. Having connected with various social movements inside the major cities, Ninja works as much or more to further those causes as they do to simply report what's happening. And while many traditional journalists might take issue with this, Ninja soundly rejects that mindset.
There's a myth in the journalism industry that says that the journalism it must be impartial, and that you can't say what you think, you just can say the facts. And this is a lie, because the huge newspapers and televisions are always putting their opinion, and there's no such a thing as a fact without opinion or a context. Right?
We need to have a side on the questions that we are covering. We have side, we have our opinion, and we are giving this opinion all the time.
I believe that for us it's important to say to people that we are partial and we have a side and we are working for it, and we have no problem with that, as the mainstream media has another side. The thing is, which side are you?
We also believe that it's important, again, to increase the free media environment, to make it possible to more people have the right and the ways to give their opinions. So this is how we work, giving our opinion and incentivizing people to give them. It's what we call a mosaic of partiality, a mosaic of opinions that we are building. We are not pretending that we don't have a side. We are assuming our side, incentivizing more people to assume their sides, and we believe that this diversity of point of views is what we are needing now to understand better, in a more clever perspective, a very complex moment that our country and actually the whole world is living.
After the wave of massive protests subsided in late 2013, the Mídia NINJA had a chance to focus on its future. Ninja knew early on that social media are powerful tools for disseminating the group's narrative, but it wasn't going to be enough. To present a serious counter-narrative to the mass media players in Brazil would require its own platform.
We have a huge structure we are building on the independent media, and we are working a lot. We just launched the portal, the Ninja platform. It was amazing, and we are getting deep on this question of it's starting to be more and more and more like adults game, like real game, real thing, making an alternative to the mainstream media. I think we're getting more and more close to that.
The publishing platform serves Ninja in other ways too. It enables truly anonymous posting from individual journalists or activists. Audiences won't know who's responsible for what content because it's all published under one author, Ninja. This one group, one voice concept certainly fits Ninja's collective ethos, and it has practical applications too.
E até mesmo por uma questão de segurança, não minha, mas eu acho.
It's a matter of security, not mine, but for everyone. When you belong to a collective and not to yourself, you also gain strength. No one is going to blame just you. You did this picture. You reported these things. And it's something that we can use to protect our integrity.
With often violent suppression of the independent media movement in Brazil, the veil of anonymity can protect individual journalists from targeted backlash. It also further promotes the collective spirit championed by Fora do Eixo and the Mídia NINJA. For many Ninja members, the collective lifestyle is what attracted them in the first place. But this form of living presents its own challenges.
The difficult part is the convivence between different people into the same space. You know, so the fights, the discussions, or feel tired or need some fresh air on your head, I don't see those things as any kind of collateral effect. They are just part of the process. They are here all the time, and you need to live with those things to advance.
As with any media organization, one of the chief obstacles is sustainability. And for the members of Mídia NINJA, accruing profit is about as far from their minds as possible.
We're not selling our work of time so we can get money and we can buy the time to do whatever we want. We just do whatever we want. So if you ask me who financial, I would say us, because we put all our strength of power, all our desire and all our work and time in this process.
In addition to living in communal spaces to save money, all the members contribute to the cash collective of each house. No one has personal funds. Everything belongs to that collective's proverbial piggy bank.
We all can take a part of the collective box, but we don't have our own amount defined.
Each member with professional skills is expected to leverage those skills into paying gigs if time and opportunity allow.
We got lots of people here that are photographers, filmmakers. We can write projects, scripts, and do lots of service.
If someone uses his or her skills to earn money, that money goes into the pot. But this isn't the only way the ninja gets money. That comes from Big Brother, Fora do Eixo.
When we are organizing a festival, then you can find some sponsors for that. You are running a bar, you can sell some tickets for the concerts, and this is something that always helps us in the sense to have some money to operate.
And while the support from Fora do Eixo certainly helps, a lack of consistent income can test the resolve of the ninja and the patience of creditors.
You need to develop your capacity to work on red and keep going, and then you just understand your symbolical capital as something that helps you to go to different partners and say, okay, I owe you some money, calm down, look to our fan page, look to our website, to the festivals that we are doing. We are not break, we are doing lots of things. I just don't have the money to pay you now, but wait, calm down, and it will work. So we just need to be creative day by day to keep it possible to do everything that we want.
Doing as a practical thing, what we believe in. If we believe in more collective, collaborative societies, and that people are more generous to each other and they share stuff and they don't fight for money or have to police each other for money. So we are applying in a practical way what we believe.
Bom, o que tem nas redes, que eu acho que é o mais legal, é a vida.
It's being able to live together and share not only your desires, your dreams, but also your trials, your doubts, the things you question. I don't think there's anyone normal in the world, and when our insanity is shared, it becomes potential.
It's not about Mídia NINJA. It's about why it's important to have people that are dedicated their life, like they are working their life to change some things.
It's important, again, to increase the free media environment, to make it possible to more people have the right and the ways to give their opinions. It's pretty much what we call social technologies. I mean, the knowledge that is produced outside of the university if you organize it and if you systematize it, this is also science, you know. So if you are exchanging it, you will help different groups to increase their capacity to act.
And I think that it's a network that can do anything. It depends on the needs we have and the necessities we see the world needs, or the context we live needs. So I think it's highly important to have this kind of thing, like people that use their knowledge and their time to be engaged in some situations. I think this is prioritary in the world.
De pessoas que podem.
It's a group of people that can be the difference, so that other realities arise, that will give a new meaning to the population's life, another perspective of what happens, that reports all the injustices and atrocities that happen in our society.
And then, of course, we also inspired lots of new collectives that, seeing our experience, they saw, okay, it's possible, let's go, we can make it too. You just find some friends, get organized, find a mobile, a simple camera, create a page, and go to the streets. You'll be able to talk your point of view to lots of people. I think that there are lots of movements that are understanding this visibility moment as an unique moment to build the narratives of indigency. What we are fighting against, what do we need, what we think that need to get better from now on. So this is the proper moment to show this to Brazilian society, government, and to the rest of the world.